Greetings. This your girl B.A.Y E Upcycle. On my way to work. 9:49 p.m. Tuesday, June 25th, 2019. Hashtag concernment. So for concernment, I'm reading the book The Honor of Women in Islam by Yusuf de Costa. And chapter 1 is called The Status of Women Pre-Islamic Arabia. So we're talking about 7th century AD, for those of y'all that understand that, CE, for those who are in a new era of things. And during the time that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born, Arabia had a lot going on. They had very little to no respect for the women, especially lower class women. Upper class women was different. Their status allowed them to own property, allowed them to maintain property after the deaths of their husband. It allowed them to indirectly participate in politics. But lower class women, that's a totally different ball game that we're talking about. They were forced into marriages without their consent, whether it was from their father, their brother, their uncle, some type of male guardian. He can choose whoever he wanted for her to marry, and she had no say. In these marriages, they also had temporary marriages that were for a fixed period of time, whatever the circumstances was. And any child that was born from that temporary marriage was considered a disgrace. They had to deal with just being released at any given moment for any given thing. If a husband got just tired of his wife for whatever reason, he was allowed to just divorce her. And the men of that time was also allowed to have unlimited wives. In the midst of that, they also was dealing in a lot of prostitution, and they were dealing in a lot of adultery. So prostitution and adultery actually plays, both realms, because it takes two people to engage in those things. But when you've been divorced and you've been looked at as spoiled goods, for lack of better terms, we know nowadays, because of the internet, we have access to information that even nowadays a lot of women of lower class societies turn to prostitution as a way to just be able to eat, to provide. In a perfect world, our women wouldn't have to do that, and our men wouldn't have to engage in such activities either. But this is just, this life is a test for us. Another thing that the women had to deal with was female infanticide. So that's where they would bury their daughters immediately after birth. That makes it really emotional. We know other cultures do this as well, and because of the internet and our reach of information, we know that is something that is still being practiced to this day. And in a perfect world, we wouldn't have that either. So that's pretty much the logistics of chapter 1. They also had these type of divorces. I think it's called a suspensory divorce. I put them in below in the description, the actual terminology for that type of divorce. But basically what it was is the husband was allowed to divorce his wife and not live with her, not have to care for her, but she was still his wife, but she couldn't remarry nobody, even though she was left on her own. But she's truly messed up, like it is. And so that is what the women during the time, the birth of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, and for the next 40 years, we're dealing with. Is being lower class citizens. And us in America being part African American and knowing about chattel slavery and stuff, we can sympathize with the women of those times. And we can appreciate Islam coming along because, as we know, one of the first things that Islam established when it came about was the rights of women. Women were no longer treated as property, and there were no longer acceptance of female infanticide. There was no longer acceptance of men having unlimited wives. In the Quran, Allah forgive me for give or take from this, it says that a man can have 1, 2, 3, or 4 wives. And to each his own, whether people choose to just have one, whether they have 2, 3, or 4, that's neither here nor there. That's their own personal lifestyle that I'm not going into in this video. So I appreciate Islam because when I look at the rights of women in America and what we're fighting for today, and as African Americans, and what we were fighting for 50 years ago and even 100 years ago, and if you understand European history, you would understand that even the Europeans downplayed their women. They allowed the African Americans, or the coloreds, whatever term you want to use of that time, to vote before they allowed their own women to vote. I just want to say, alhamdulillah, like all praise to God for Islam. All praise to God for the changing of the times, the changing of the conditions. Because me, myself, as a woman, I wouldn't want to be forced into any type of marriage. I wouldn't want to be forced into doing anything. I love the idea of having the choice. The choice to choose who I'm going to love. The choice to choose who I'm not going to love, who I am going to marry, who I'm not going to marry. Just having that choice. Being treated as a human being is a beautiful thing. Being treated with respect and kindness is a beautiful thing. And so I want to keep all the women who has ever had to go through that, regardless of culture, regardless of their location, of their status, regardless. Let's just keep those women in our prayers. Let's keep each other in our prayers. Most certainly, let's keep our descendants in our prayers, our children in our prayers. Because I remember there was a time I did not want to have a daughter, and when I did get pregnant with my daughter, I was mad scared of what could happen to her just because she was a female. So alhamdulillah, ladies, that's it. We almost at 10 minutes. We're at 9.5. You guys know me doing 80 on the 80 going to work. And this is what it is. #concernment. Until next time. Peace.